Welcome to Fearless Finances, where I try to take the fear out of your finances. Recently, I came across just a crazy Dave Ramsey video. I know that's not that unusual. Dave tends to have some interesting ideas. And in this one, he had what I would call a doozy of crazy ideas. In fact, my next two Dave Ramsey videos, this one and the next one, has some really bad Dave Ramsey math in it. I don't know if he knows his basic math, which seems kind of odd for somebody who gives financial advice. But if you tune into my podcast, What Dave Ramsey Got Wrong, you're going to find a lot of information that just doesn't add up. Today, it's about Dave Ramsey claiming that you'll get a negative 4% return from Social Security. That's right. You heard me. A negative 4% return. And you don't need to take my word for it. We'll listen to Dave tell you about it, and I'll meet you on the other side. Point one, I want to apologize a little bit about the background. I'm in my home that I currently rent out while I'm in Mexico, and I'm between tenants, so I'm fixing up the place a little bit. And so things around here are a little bit sparse at the moment. But while I'm here, I thought I'd also do some additional videos about my move to Mexico and how things are going renting this place out. So look for those upcoming videos as well. Without further ado, though, I think we should jump into the video with Dave Ramsey ranting, and he even admits it's a rant, about the negative 4% return you'll get from Social Security. Now, we're going to pop into this video at about the 3-minute mark. The first 3 minutes, he talks a little bit about when you should collect Social Security, what makes the most sense, etc. And I've already done a video on that I'm going to link right there when we're done. In fact, because Dave Ramsey talks in here about the solvency of Social Security as well, I've got a video on that, and I'll have them both linked at the end. But let's jump into Dave's video when he starts his Social Security rant.
Mutual fund is part of your estate. When you die with Social Security, nothing! That's what you get. So that's what you get.
Now, that's true. And that's why sometimes it makes good sense to start collecting early, because if you don't ever collect any of it, other than a $250 benefit, a death benefit to your spouse, that's all you'll get. But back to Dave.
Like you said, it's a great plan. If you run the numbers out on your Social Security, folks, you will discover it's about a negative 4% rate of return in your life. Only the government could figure out a way to talk everyone into having something removed from their check that they make a negative 4% on.
Only Dave could figure out that math. Let's tune back in, because I listened to all of it hoping he would explain how he ended up with this 4% return. Because I got to tell you, if you're going to make a statement like that, bag it up. That's one thing that's nice about math, is you can prove it backwards and forwards. You can check if you got the right answer, because it works multiple ways. And when you got the answer right, it never comes out wrong. So let's tune in to Dave and find out how he arrives at this glorious negative 4%.
Everybody fights to keep it in place, and it becomes a political icon. Only in the United States government could they figure out a way to make that crap work.
Just so you're aware, every industrialized nation of the world has a social pension, in addition to universal health care that, like, everyone else has figured out but the United States. Every other nation also has what they call a social pension. We call it Social Security. Other countries call it other things, but they all have them. If it was such a darn ripoff, none of them would do it. But back to the video.
You guys all just, oh, mess with Social Security.
He's so rude.
Listen, I'll tell you what. Here's a plan. I'm 58 years old. If you never made me pay again, you could keep everything that I've paid to this point. I've been paying into it almost 40 years.
I don't know why, Dave. You see, if you're a business owner, you can reduce your Social Security expense. In fact, if you were a publicly held corporation or even just a C corporation, you wouldn't have to pay yourself a salary at all. You could have avoided paying all this extra Social Security. So, if you know the tax rules, Dave, you can also save that money. To the video.
I have been paying into it 40 years. You could keep all that. I'll still come out ahead in the next 20 years, not putting money in the stupid thing.
I don't know why he's working for the next 20 years and keeping to pay in, but okay.
Just putting that amount of money, the amount of money you robbed from me in my check for this broken, screwed up mathematical disaster. See, that wasn't even sarcasm. That's just calling it out.
He may be calling it out, but he's not proving anything that he's saying. And I want to take an additional moment here just to stand on that for a second. Whenever you happen to be listening to somebody and they're ranting, as Dave is, but they're not giving you any numbers to back it up or proof sources, but they're just ranting and saying things like they're a fact without proof. Generally, those are the people that you might want to avoid their advice or do additional research on. It's just a great rule to have because anyone worth listening, anyone who knows what they're talking about, will back up what they are telling you with facts and with data and with numbers. Back to Dave.
I could take the amount of money I'm going to pay in where you're ripping me off, put that in a mutual fund, and I would have more income than I will have having paid in and gave up the whole 40 years. You guys can just keep that because your program's so freaking awesome. You can just keep it. That's the math. It sucks that bad. Only the federal government could talk you people into doing this and you just like a bunch of sheep. Yeah, let's just take it out of my check.
So rude. So very rude. Lately, I've had some people who support Trump say that I've been rude to them, calling it stupid to vote for someone who lied about an election and encouraged people to beat police. Oh, and then pardoned all of them. I've been saying that it's stupid in anyone's book to vote for someone like that. Because I really think we should call out like the truth of the matter. Time and again, these Trump supporters will say, "Oh, how rude. I didn't want to talk to you." They don't like address the issue. Like, you voted for a criminal. Like, it makes absolutely no sense in anyone's book, but you voted for a criminal. And instead of offering some explanation for doing something so dumb, they just talk about how I'm being rude pointing it out. Well, when I hear people like Dave and Donald Trump for that matter, because he's pretty rude too, I start to think that maybe that's the only language that Trump supporters understand. Like being really bold with language. And like him going, you bunch of minions. I don't even know what he's talking about. But I'll also tell you this. I used to handle conversations like that a lot differently. I used to try to talk about policy and what was going on. And then invariably, I would just be called names and no discussion really came forward. So now I just point out the fact that you voted for somebody who lied about an election and encouraged people to beat police and then pardoned them. And in no one's book is that a smart idea. And they never say, it's brilliant. What are you talking about? Who wouldn't? No, that's never the response because it isn't smart. It's not. But also, we have this toxic stuff generally coming from men like Dave Ramsey and Donald Trump. People are being toxic and rude a lot. And it's usually men like this. Now, granted, there's some women who get on the bandwagon, and, it's not mutually exclusive to just these men. But I find absolutely nothing appealing about it. I have spent my entire adult life with men mansplaining. I'm done. I'm done. It's evident to me and to a lot of other people that men like Dave Ramsey and Elon Musk and Donald Trump and Stephen Miller and a whole bunch of them have messed a whole bunch of stuff up. Our world is worse off because of the way that they think about things and the way that they choose to communicate those thoughts. So I'm just kind of done. But I guess that's my rant. Let's get back to Dave.
Yeah, just golly, man. And we all just love it. And God forbid that the Democrats or the Republicans ever tinker with this broken freaking system. Oh, your grandmother's going to starve and it's going to be all your party's fault. What a crock. The whole thing is a disaster. Okay, got that out of my system. Tracy, your sarcasm turned into my rant. That's how this works around here.
I tried to find out what Dave meant about this negative 4%, like how he might have calculated it. And I did numerous Google searches. I went to his website. I looked at the Social Security information. I could not find anything that explains where he arrived at this 4%. But I did find another YouTuber who had done a little bit of a rant about this section too. And he had run some of the numbers. So I thought maybe you and I can watch that and see if it illuminates a little bit about what Dave is trying to say.
He said he could do much better on his own. So, is Social Security a good investment? Could you take the money that you paid into the system and do better on your own? Again, let's go back to the numbers here. Let's take someone who was working at age 22 in 1977. They retired in 2021 at the age of 66.
Yes, let's look at the numbers. I'm liking this already.
Now, over their career, again, to keep this fair, they made exactly the average wage index. With those earnings and that work history, their full retirement age benefit would be about $2,213 if they filed. Now, over the 45 years they worked, they paid in nearly $170,000 in Social Security taxes when you consider both the tax the employer paid in and the tax the employee paid in. So what would happen if they would have invested that money along the way? Well, again, we have to make some assumptions here about investment returns and a few other things. Once the person retires, we have to consider the annual cost of living adjustment, life expectancy, so on and so forth. But to keep things as easy as possible, let's just use the same numbers from the earlier example. And let's assume this individual is going to live until age 83. Benefits are going to increase by 2% per year. And the two rates of return we'll use for comparison will be 5% and 12%. So first, let's look at what would happen at 12%. So from age 22 through age 66, at a 12% rate of return, if you would have invested all of those taxes instead of putting it in the Social Security system, you would have accumulated $2.9 million. And at age 66, you could start making withdrawals to pay yourself the same thing you would have received from Social Security. And in this scenario, you'd have more than enough to pay yourself the same amount that you'd receive from Social Security, and you'd still see your balance growing. In fact, by the time you reached 83, you'd have just over $18 million. So based on this simple math, Dave's right. It would be a better way to do it. But, as we discussed in the last example, 12% is a perfect world scenario.
I want to jump in here for a second because this is the thing, the employer contribution to Social Security. You see, I might put in 6.25%, but my employer also adds in the same 6.25%. I get 100% return immediately. Dave Ramsey seems to be neglecting that, and that employer match is substantial. The other thing that's important to keep in mind here is none of these returns are guaranteed. He's going to do a lower return in just a second. Let's look at that and talk about the values he comes up with.
Let's assume that we only get a 5% annual return. And in that case, from age 22 through 66, at 5% return, you'd have accumulated just over $460,000. That would be enough to pay you the same amount that you'd receive from Social Security, but instead of your balance increasing, it would steadily decrease. By the time you reached 83, you'd still have just over $200,000, but if you lived to age 89, you'd be out of money. But there's one critical thing missing from all of these examples, and it's disability, spousal, and survivor benefits. Disability and survivor benefits can protect you long before you retire, with benefits not only for you, but your family as well. And to duplicate that protection, you'd have to also buy disability insurance and life insurance along the way. And if you would have deferred some of those taxes to pay for those insurance premiums, you wouldn't have had nearly that much to invest, and the results wouldn't have been close to the returns of investing at all.
And I'll add, there's something else. This is why it's called Social Security, and it's a form of social insurance. It's a way that we collectively can come together and help each other out. Some of us will benefit more financially from the benefit. We might live past that 83. We might not have earned very much in our working years, and Social Security helps us sustain us or brings us out of poverty. And there's other people like Dave Ramsey who possibly could have gotten a better return if he hadn't participated. But thank you, Dave, and other rich people for helping people out that weren't as fortunate as you. When we frequently hear of Social Security going underwater, it's normally because of employers who don't want to pay that match. And I know earlier I made a big deal about the fact that calculations like this do not include that employer match. But technically, employers figure that in as part of our compensation. It's owed us. Sorry to pop in like this, but I was doing the editing and I thought to myself, I might know what Dave is talking about. There's a video we show in some of our classes, and I'm going to run it for you. Now, I could zero in on the part that talks about where I think Dave is going with his negative 4%, but I want to play the whole thing. It's only 3 minutes long. I'll stop it right when they get to the part where they hit Dave's point. But the beginning talks about why pundits say that Social Security is bad when it really probably is not. And so it serves to address Dave's rant about Social Security. And when we hit that point, I'll jump back in.
Is Social Security the best government program ever, or the worst?
This Social Security measure.
On August 14th, 1935, Franklin Delano Roosevelt signed the Social Security Act to reduce poverty among the elderly. But after 8 decades, Social Security doesn't get the respect it deserves.
It is a Ponzi scheme.
Social Security is actually worse than a Ponzi scheme.
Others say it's about to go bankrupt, or maybe it's broken already. But Social Security isn't just doing fine, it's doing much better than fine. In fact, it might be the largest and most successful government policy in the history of the United States.
How is that for a difference of opinion? Maybe the best program ever. Yes. Can you see why I wanted to show you the whole thing? Let's get back to it.
Here's how it works. It takes about 1/8 of each worker's salary, up to about $113,000. This is the payroll tax, and it funds about 96% of the program.
By the way, I think it's important to note he said up to $113,000. It's far higher than that today. I think this video was created 10 years ago. So that number has been indexed for inflation. And that number, the maximum pay in dollar of income, is important to Dave's calculation. You see, he's probably paid in at that cap the whole time, whereas there's lots of other workers who have not, which means their return from Social Security is greater. We'll talk about that in just a minute. As you can see here, the maximum income is $176,000 10 years later. Makes a big difference. Now, there is no cap for the Medicare tax of 2.9 or 1.45 for the employer and the employee. But back to our video.
Social Security also gives to retired workers, to the families of deceased workers, and to disabled Americans and their families. How does Social Security decide how much you get when you retire? It considers two main factors: how much you made and how long you worked. The more you earn and the later you retire, the bigger the Social Security checks. Higher earning workers receive larger checks when they retire. After all, they paid more money into the system when they were working. But lower income workers receive checks that represent a larger percentage of their income.
This is the exact point. This is why Dave thinks he's getting a negative 4% return, because he paid in a lot of money. And even though his benefit amount will be greater than a lower wage earner, it is a smaller percentage of the overall amount he paid in. Whereas a lower wage earner is going to get a bigger bang for their buck. Essentially, the first few dollars you're paying into Social Security, you're getting a better return for. But the closer and closer you get to that income cap, the lower your return. This is also why the other pundit, when they did average wages every year, the calculations came out different. See, it's different for every worker, but that doesn't mean that Social Security is a bad deal. It doesn't mean that Social Security is horrible and a ripoff, like some of the pundits in that video said, or that Dave Ramsey says, or that Elon Musk says. This only serves to illustrate how out of touch Dave Ramsey is. And yes, Dave, you are out of touch. You don't understand what the average worker is going through. And you need to update your financial advice as a result. People are going to be voting based on the fact that Dave Ramsey is telling them that their Social Security is a ripoff, and that is not helpful to anyone. In fact, I think we should watch the rest of this little video and see what you think.
It works. Social Security has eliminated the vast majority of elderly poverty in America. Today, the program is solely responsible for lifting 22 million Americans out of poverty. That includes about a third of our senior citizens. Half of Black and Hispanic retirees make 90% of their income from Social Security. It might be the most effective anti-poverty program in the history of this country.
The most effective anti-poverty program in America. Dave, please. Back to the video.
So why do some people hate Social Security? Some people are afraid Social Security is going bankrupt. And it's true that baby boomers will slowly drain down the $3 trillion stockpile that Social Security has amassed over the last few decades. By 2033, we won't necessarily be able to pay all senior citizens everything that they're due. But that's not a reason to blow up Social Security. We just need to tweak it, as we've done so many times before. Other people are worried that Social Security is too generous. In fact, it's probably not generous enough. First, the US actually has one of the least generous public retirement programs among all rich economies. Second, Americans don't save on their own. Social Security offers a bargain that irresponsible Americans should probably welcome: short-term pain for long-term gain. Is it socialism? Maybe. But it's socialism that saves us from our human nature.
And that whole point about being able to easily save Social Security, I've done another video on that. And again, when this is over, I'm going to link those up for you. But back to the other comments that I had. But what I do know is we need in the United States more social insurance, not less. Americans need social safety nets to help protect us from the downside. A little bit like he was just talking about with survivor benefits and disability income, all of it. It helps to keep people out of poverty, and it helps to fortify all of us. Now, again, I've got a video about when to collect Social Security, and I've also got another video about the solvency of this viable program. What did Dave call it again? Dave, what'd you call it? I don't know. I don't listen to him that much. But these videos, they're good. And make sure you subscribe. I'd love to see you back here again. Take care.